Hey, No Nonsense Know-How here again, and I'd like to try and do a quick video showing you how to install one of these Scott's steering stabilizers on this 2017 Honda Africa Twin. I've bought this bike, I don't know, probably 6 months, 8 months ago. Phenomenal motorcycle. The only one of my bikes that does have a steering stabilizer is my 1978 KZ1000, and that's got this old style where I actually got this off of an old H2, and then I welded this bracket on the frame. And you know, it's adjustable too. You can spin this to set the intensity. But these Scotts are a much more low profile design, fully rebuildable, and look at that, made in USA. Unfortunately, it's not just a direct bolt on, and you do need this entire kit, which these are pricey. So comes with the new triple tree top and all that. All right, let's dive into this. Looks pretty simple to install. Here's a look at everything that the kit comes with. You have the bar clamps, the frame bracket, the damper, some bolts, blue Loctite, a very detailed set of instructions with lots of pictures, and then a owner's manual for this steering stabilizer too. A lot of really good information in here on how these valves work and how to rebuild them. All the parts in there too if you got to order. So that's pretty sweet. Over on the bike, we'll start by removing these little plastic caps using a screwdriver from the bar clamps. And I'm gonna get my custom-made air deflector and this bungee cord off too, just to give a little bit more room. All right, I'm gonna try doing this with the GoPro on my head, so hopefully this comes out okay. And you're now gonna remove the 10mm front tank bolt. Looks like that. And then the two 17mm nuts on the bottom of these bar risers, because of course we're gonna be replacing that. Now, easiest way to get those is gonna be from down below with a long extension and a 17mm swivel socket. If you clock the bars right, you can get plenty of space. And then try not to lose that nut either when it comes out of there. Remove the four 6mm Allens from your bar clamps on the perches here. You'll take note that there's always a gap on the back, because when you tighten these down, at least the factory ones, you always pinch the fronts first, make those flush, and then the clamping action takes place on the back. So I always like to loosen them on the back first. Remove all four of those. Remove my cup from here. Throw it over there, and then you can push the bars forward as you please. I might go ahead and put a bungee cord on them, but something like that works pretty good. And we can slide these risers off. Oh, don't do that though. When I took the nuts, there's actually a washer on the bottom too. So I dropped mine, and I see it down here. Boom, there we go. So 2 washers on the bottom of those. And then when you slide these up, make sure that the rubber bushing and washer on the top, that you don't drop those, because we're going to be reusing those for the new pieces. Now I'm going to remove this 30mm nut and loosen these 4 12mm triple clamp bolts. And they say to, where's that, right here, I don't know if you can see these instructions on the camera or not, but remove this 10mm from over here on the left side of the frame, just to get a little bit more room. I'll loosen these first and see how that works out without doing that though. I'm sure you saw me do it, but certainly a good idea to have this bike on the center stand when you're doing this. That way, as you're twisting the bars back and forth, you don't knock her over. And good. Let's see if there's enough room. All right, getting toward the top. Okay. Yeah, I don't see a reason yet to remove this 10mm. Actually, yeah. Yeah, because the wire for the ignition's on it. So I'm going to zip that 10mm off down there. And grab that with a magnet. Let's see what that did. Oh yeah, definitely a lot more room. Don't want to skip that step. Now we're ready to drop the frame bracket on. So loosen up these 5mm so you get some gap in here. All right, so I've backed these all the way out to where they're basically in like one thread. And I'm going to put a dab of Loctite on these. Maybe a little bit more than a dab. Boom, just like so. And then this bolt is going to go right here. So we'll put just a little dab of Loctite on there too, and then go thread this bracket on. And so the way I'm gonna do this is you put it on there, take note of the 2 gaps, and then pull it back off and bring these bolts down to where it's basically gonna be a snug fit sliding on there. Tighten this up until I see that move a touch. And same thing on the other side. Not sure if that makes sense to you or not, but all right, looks about right. Now it should be a snug fit on there. And boom, it is. Even gaps on both sides. And then we can get the longer front tank bolt started. They made clear in the instructions that you want to tighten these all down kind of evenly and let them find their own place. Make sure not to cross thread this into the aluminum frame as you're putting it in. If the threads aren't going in easy, then double check. All right, so I've bottomed this one out and I'm going to leave it just a scotch loose, and then I got to get an Allen key. It's a wee bit tight in there, so a small Allen key is going to work to tighten these, but we're now going to tighten these half turn at a time on each side until they are fully snugged down. Alignment looks good. I have these evenly tightened down on each side, tighten down the tank bolt, all that's good. And we're ready to put the top triple tree back on. The instructions made very clear that this should go. Make sure you have your bolts sufficiently loose on the clamps, but this has got to go straight down and it should not be very hard to put on. And she was being stubborn, so I did give it a love tap all the way down. It wasn't very hard though, but we're now gonna secure the 30mm nut. I saw on a forum the spec is 74 foot-pounds, but for me we're gonna just go good and tight, about 80 foot-pounds or so on that. Feels good. Then tighten your 4 12mm bolts and put that 10mm bolt back in the plastic bracket down there. If you're not familiar with tightening fasteners, good idea to look up the pinch bolt torque on these, because you could break one of these clamps if you over torque it. I always like to alternate back and forth a couple times and make sure that they're both sufficiently snug. If you know the torque spec to these though, plug it in down below, and that'd be great for other people watching this in the future. Now let's disassemble the sub mount. A sticker on here telling us not to forget to tighten any bolts. So zip these 4 6 off. And then the 2 8mm hex in there. All right, and before we drop this down, we're going to transfer the washer and grommet from the old risers, whatever they're called. A washer and grommet. And then we can go ahead and put this on in this orientation. Bottoms out nice, flush and true, and make sure you have that nut already tightened down. Comes with these nuts and washers for it, along with, this is the pin. We're going to be using that later. So, oh, I forgot to put Loctite on the threads. I'll pull that back off. We'll put a little dab will do ya right on there. Forget if the instructions said this or not, but Loctite can never go wrong. Of course, these are lock nuts anyway, but yeah. Now get these started below and tighten them down. They're also 17mm, so you'll be using that same long extension to get those. Let's pause real quick. When you tighten this down, they supply you with a new washer and nut for the bottom. However, I see a slight design flaw because Honda, well, they have these bushings in here, right? And so from the factory, you have this big washer on the bottom and the top. And so God forbid that bushing was to ever fail and the center collar was to pull out of it, which probably would never, ever happen. But on the Honda clamps, let's reach over here. On the Honda clamps, the way it's designed, with that bushing failing, it could never be pulled up at all. And with these new BRP, I guess BRP makes these, with these, the washer is actually smaller than the ID of this bore. So technically, if this bushing was to fail with this small washer on there, it could come up. And I see that as a slight design flaw. I mean, comment down below if you think I'm wrong about that. But to me, it seems like you should have a wider washer. Of course, you can't use the Honda washers because these are 12 millimeter threads instead of the original 12 mil shaft with 10 millimeter threads on the Honda. So I'm going to drill these out and use these. And if anybody's got beef with that, then you let me know. No, I'm going to need 7/16. Probably use a step drill bit. There we go. Okay. The safer bet when putting this on is to take the rubber and slide it over this collar first. That way you don't mistakenly pinch it in there. Oh, would you look at that? I ventured off, and that's not going to work because this big washer actually bumps the frame bracket. So, all right, well, that makes sense why they use this tiny little washer now. Well, I tried, I tell you. Hopefully you didn't already do that and then find this out and waste your time like me. Those nuts were tough to get to from the bottom because this frame bracket's actually in the way, so I had to use a deep 17 mil socket as well. But we're now ready to put the lower perches on, and these you have two options. So you could put them on the standard position like that, or rotate them 180, and boom, it pushes the bars up a little bit more forward. I think, so I put some Loctite on these too, by the way. I'm gonna leave them in the forward position because in the instructions it says that taller riders generally prefer that, and I'm 6'3". You know what, actually, I changed my mind about that. I'm gonna flip them back because I just remembered my cup holder gets pretty close to the windshield sometimes, so I'm gonna leave these in the back position. And then we'll go good and tight on those. Grease up your pin. I'm using some Bel-Ray waterproof grease. Darn GoPro froze up. This pin, you slide it with the long round end going in. Make sure to grease that, and it rotates freely. And then the top part has the side cuts, just like that. And then we can bolt the stabilizer on. It does already have Loctite applied. And drop those in. And oh boy, how is this gonna look? Oh, beautiful. Just make sure when it goes on, it's nice and flush and that it sits on this bracket and it's not like bottoming out or anything. And then snug those 5 mils down. We'll put these bars back on. Start your clamps. Big note here. Now, when you tighten down these, you're going to go with even gaps on both sides because that's the way that these bar clamps are. But I like the factory. When you have factory bar clamps like these Honda ones, you always tighten the forward one first, and that sits completely flush, and then the pinch action takes place on the back. And this is actually a much, because these are stepped. This one's actually higher right here than this one. And this is elementary stuff, but this is a much stronger design because during impact, you have full surface contact of these aluminum surfaces here, versus on this style, you don't get that kind of contact. You have the contact on the bars, but this is the factory. This is much stronger and better, but this will be fine. So if it has this style, you just tighten them down evenly and snug them all down. I had to slide my cell phone mount over just a touch, but if you haven't seen these before, it's made by Tacform. I'll plug a link to them down below on Amazon. Best cell phone holder ever. You just slide over to lock it in. It's spring loaded, and I mean your phone's going nowhere. I've used this off-road a bunch, and it's just so much better than the old RAM style. I am using the RAM mount still though. It's on these ball mounts, so you can loosen this to twist it and move it wherever the heck you want. And I'd call that installed. When I rotate my bars, it doesn't hit the windshield. I kind of had a feeling, but my custom-made aluminum air deflector is no longer going to fit. That's no big deal, though. Maybe I'll trim that in the future or try to do something with it, but I think that looks like a top-notch piece. I'm going to leave the adjustments right where they are. You got the high-speed adjustment here and a low-speed or the main basic adjustment right here. Manual goes into a ton of detail on how to adjust these valves, so I'm going to just try it out the way it is, but I can tell you, rotating it right now, I can hear it. And I can feel it a little bit, so I'm very excited to take it on the road. I'm thinking we'll probably keep that to a part 2, only because this is going on so long. I think that covers the gist of how you install this, and hopefully I didn't miss anything or give you any wrong information. Make sure to double check, triple check all of your bolts, like your triple tree bolts on the top, everything. Make sure it all feels tight, and before you go ripping down the road, you know? I gotta go find the factory bolts for this now too. So I'm going to end it right here, and I hope I didn't go too fast or too slow for you. Hopefully I didn't miss anything. Make sure to drop this video a thumbs up. Leave me a comment with any feedback or questions down below. And again, if a few people leave comments, I will try to do a before and after on this. You could just pop that pin out and try, pop the whole stabilizer off and do before and afters of what it feels like. So it's winter now, it's November 21st. So I'm probably not going to get too much riding in this year, but definitely going to take it for a rip tomorrow and see how she feels. So till next time, KZ Guy 2 here, Chris Brown, No Nonsense Know-How is the name now. And consider checking out the channel, subscribing, and I hope to see you again. See ya. Don't forget to put your caps on either, and any other final touches.